Hey, folks, welcome back to Health and Tech with Amanda Nystrom, National Health Board certified health and well-being coach. Amanda, what are we talking about today?
JD, we are talking about switching to challenge-based stress, and we do that via resilient thinking.
Now, specifically, when we say switching, for those who didn't see the previous episode, what we're talking about is that there is threat-based stress and challenge-based stress. Threat-based stress, bad. Challenge-based stress, good. Resilient thinking is the process of taking something that is threat based through resilient thinking and turning it into a challenge based opportunity.
Essentially.
Okay, so hit us. How can you make all of our stress lives better?
Well, one of the things that I said in the last episode that is important to say again is that, minor stressors here and there and minor threat-based stress, not a big deal for your system. Your system is really, really strong, so it can handle a lot. It's when it becomes your way of life, when it's nonstop, chronic.
When it's
Um,
that's the word I was looking for. When it's chronic.
yes, chronic stress is the kind that is damaging to not only your mental health, duh, but also it comes down to your cells because as it turns out, our cells actually listen to us.
I think that's going to be a hard one for a lot of people to accept. It's still, I mean, for a lot of people that would listen to this, it might be obvious, right? Because we are so nerdy, right? It is not all that. It's not a giant leap to say that everything within us is connected, right? But even the most brilliant of us tend to ignore the realities of health. I mean, the one that I love to point to is Steve Jobs. Right, because Steve Jobs died because he was an arrogant person. He refused to listen to science. He thought he was smarter than cancer doctors, and now he's dead. But it's all connected, right? So how do our cells listen to us?
Our cells listen to us because our behaviors and our habits of thinking, over time, they meld, right? Our system literally builds neural pathways, synaptic connections, the wiring of our brain. I like to call it the coding of our brain. Um, to listen to how we do things, and that blends into our cells. Now, how it actually works outside of adaptation, I'm not exactly sure, but that is hardcore science that I don't have the credentials behind, but I do know it happens.
Okay. So what you're saying is that, well, let's take trauma as an example. Um, when you incur trauma, it isn't and specifically emotional trauma, I'm not talking about physical trauma. I think it's easy for people with like, "Oh, someone hit me with a bat, and therefore the cells that make up my ribs are now damaged," right? I think that's an easy leap. The harder leap is when we're talking about emotional trauma, and, whatever that is, we're not gonna go into that, but, for you or me or anybody else, but whatever your emotional trauma is, that trauma impacts our cells, our biology. It's not a s it and our psychology is part of our biology. Okay, so ho please.
Well, that brings us back to the reason for this episode, which is that, when we get into the habit of having chronic negative thinking or chronic shame-based thoughts or just chronic stress, it doesn't even have to be negative. We're setting up our systems to fail sooner than they would if we take the time now to counterbalance it. And I do want to say here that, like, all of us have negative thoughts. All of us have stress, and bad feelings and all of that. Those aren't inherently bad. It's the nonstop, right? And it's the not taking a break. And it's, like I said, not having that balance. And so, one of the things that we really need to do is to get to know our thoughts and our habits and Nobody wants to take time for that, especially in our fast paced industry. But I mean, paying attention, if you take 1 minute or even 10 seconds to just sit and ask yourself what kind of thoughts are going into your head, what is going to come up?
That's a great question. And I know you meant it rhetorically, but recently, it was a couple weeks ago, um, I had one of those moments inadvertently. I was just on the couch and I wasn't doom scrolling. I wasn't reading. I didn't have the TV on or anything. It was early in the morning. And all of a sudden, because nothing was going on, it was like I was, for a moment, the only thing I was with was my thoughts. I stood up and went outside. It's a very, if it's not something you do, okay, I want to put this a different way. For me, or actually, I would imagine most people, if it's not something you're used to, even if they're good thoughts, it's an overwhelming situation. All of a sudden, it's like it's if you ever been to the ocean and you get hit by a rogue wave, that's unexpected and can be exhilarating and scary. But what happens if you get hit from a rogue wave from all 4 directions at the same time, right? If that you're gonna feel like you're drowning, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's all of a sudden. Um, but you're taught what you're talking about. I mean, you keep going back that to this idea of paying attention to your thoughts and stuff, and I keep pulling you back to that term that you taught me, which is being mindful. Right? Is mindfulness the key to resilient thinking?
It is one of them, yes. And that begins with taking that 10 seconds, like you did, to be with your thoughts, as uncomfortable as it is and potentially salty.
They were not salty thoughts, this time.
Ocean.
We can get sailor if you want.
Ocean.
Oh, I know what you meant. So, let's come back around here. I mean, what are the techniques? I mean, you said one of them is being mindful. What does that mean? What does it mean to be mindful? How can people do that?
A lot of people do it via meditation, so sitting down and listening to some guided form of meditation. I know that that is typically considered woo woo. Oddly effective though, because what it does to your brain is allow it to go into the you're using your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical side of your brain, instead of triggering your amygdala, which is where your fight or flight goes off. So once you get past the this is weird, your brain actually settles down and allows you to be present with your thoughts. But other ways that you can do that is like what you experienced, not have the phone on, shut down the TV and the laptop and the work system and everything, and just be. And don't. It isn't something that you need to be like, I need to commit to 20 minutes a day. This is something you start off small, like 10 seconds, a minute if you're, feeling particularly strong that day. And I mean strong in that mindfulness is something that you learn to really enjoy, but it is something that, like you said, is really uncomfortable initially. So if you go at it with small steps, like we've been talking about, you're much more likely to actually be present for it instead of triggering your anxiety about the fact that you're trying to be mindful. And knowing that it's a practice, right? So taking a moment while you're making dinner to really be present and not just, like, shut your thoughts down and just like, be with the fact that you are cutting carrots right now. How does that feel? Or if you go outside, how does the air on your face feel? It's that shutting down your thoughts and being with your body, as weird as that sounds. It's, one of the things in mindfulness that people really come back to is the mind-body connection, because the more mindful you are, the more you actually feel what's going on.
Okay. How can I say this knowing that I love you so very deeply. Um, you're crazy. No, no, let me elaborate. And the response I'm giving you is because, um, while I understand and I agree and I know that there is multi peer reviewed back science from multiple organizations about what you just said. You are asking for an enormous amount of bravery from people in current society, right? For to be with that base level of emotion is deeply vulnerable, and to be that deeply vulnerable takes an enormous amount of courage. So, maybe we can pull it back a little bit and make it something that, I know you said just start with 10 seconds or only start with a minute or something, but I think we need to start with even a more baby step of something that's practical in terms of resilient based thinking. How can someone in tech apply this to their day, right? They're at the computer, they're multitasking because that's what you do in tech, right? Even though multitasking doesn't exist. And the constant thread is how do I get more billing, or how do I sell this product, or how do I fix this bug? And that's all overwhelmingly covered by this dark cloud of I'm burning out.
I'm gonna lean on my dear friend and fellow colleague and coach. She has a talk, our keynote at Postgres conference, and the title of that is "The Power of the Pause." And it's all basically the answer to your question. In order for us to even get started with this, a really simple, I didn't say easy, but a simple way is to pause. Just
Take
pause.
a breath.
Take a breath or 3 breaths if you're feeling courageous. Just reset. And one of the reasons that this is important as a whole, not just in the busy moment, is that think about, how much a system goes through. Especially those of us and my team, if they ever watch this, will definitely just nod and giggle a little bit to themselves. Those of us who have like a billion tabs open, right? And everything else that we're doing with our systems, our computers have to, at some point, reboot in order to have the best performance, right? Over time, those 1,000
This is not
tabs
Windows.
will I have this experience, the team has this experience all the time. Things slow down when you are doing all the things and you don't reboot, when you don't pause.
Now that I agree with. So with without pimping the conference too much, because obviously they should go to postgresconf.org and buy a ticket and listen to this keynote from Megan. Um, while everyone who's listening, hopefully this comes out before the 21st, and you do go to postgresconf.org and buy a ticket so you can see Megan. Let's bring this back. How does this apply? Okay, so now we have the power of pause, pausing, taking a breath, not multitasking. By the way, if you can't see the titles of your tabs, you have too many tabs open. Um, what does this have to do with resilient thinking and how we go from threat based stress to, I forgot the name of the other one,
Challenge based.
challenge based stress? So, how do we use resilient thinking to move from threat based stress to challenge based? So, how do we move from the bad to the good?
Well, unfortunately, the first step is awareness of our threat-based stress. So paying attention to our thoughts and figuring out where they're at. Um, Without that, we're we're just going to be working on autopilot, and we can't actually make active, proactive choices that are in line with the type of stress that we want.
That's a really good word you just said, proactive. Okay. When you're in threat based mode, your decisions are reactive. When you are in challenge based mode, your decisions are proactive. So we have to get from the reactive to the pro. It's almost like we're going in circles here. We have to go from the reactive to the proactive through resilient thinking. And the resilient thinking comes about from two things: pausing and mindfulness.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. How do I do this? Tech workers are always working, even if they only quote unquote work 40 hours a week. They're working 60 or 70. It's how the main mind works for tech people. So it's almost like, if we're not talking about the 8 to 6, we're talking about the 7 to the 5:30. Okay, 7 p.m. to 5:30 in the morning. That is the time where it feels like we can be the most proactive in strengthening our ability to be mindful and pause when we go back into the reactionary state of work.
It's a good idea.
Um, how else would you approach this? What else is it that you want to make sure that our listeners get a hold on or a handle on?
I completely understand that mindfulness and being sitting with your thoughts is an uncomfortable thing, and it's not something that people want to do. Um, but there's three things that I think are really important here, regardless of starting a meditation practice or anything else. People meditate differently. People are present differently, and so. But these things are really essential. And hear me out, because I know you're not going to like the first one. Um, Take a self compassion break. Like when you are pausing, be self compassionate. I know that people in tech are harder on themselves than many, many other areas because perfection can be achieved, right? And so if what we're doing isn't perfect, then there's something wrong with us, which isn't true. And self compassion, just giving ourselves permission to not be perfect and that we're learning and that we're human, taking that moment really allows us to reset. And it is one of the best types of reboots that you can possibly do. The second one is called managing your eager assistant. So when your negative thoughts or your judge of like yourself or others pops up, having just the thought that this isn't a bad thing, it's just a really, really eager like executive assistant who really wants to please you and wants to do all the things and offers all the suggestions, but not might not have the right answer. Um, Having the perspective that your inner critic is just a really zealous assistant has a much better way of transforming how you think about it than just letting it go by and then feeling bad about the fact that you're feeling negative about all these things. I don't know if that makes sense. Um,
It does.
but really just yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, please continue your thought.
And the eager assistant isn't a bad thing to have. They're really good to have. But acknowledging that that's what that is allows you to step aside and say, I'm going to sit in this proactive response instead of the reactive executive assistant. Not saying that executive assistants are reactive and bad or anything like that at all. Mine
We're
is
not
on here
picking
right
on you,
now, and
Diana.
I adore her. Um, but it's a really good way to reframe what your brain is doing to you because your brain is just trying to protect you. Having self-compassion allows you to go through that whole process. And then the third thing I want to bring up today, ask yourself what you want on your tombstone. And it seems a little silly, but you can't write a whole lot on your tombstone. And it seems silly to prioritize that now, But it doesn't, I mean, to use an age-old quote, "Rome wasn't built in a day." We don't change immediately, we change over time, and so if we want to rewire our neural pathways and become what we want on that tombstone, we've got to define it now or very soon and work toward it.
That's actually, I think that's a great closeout. And for my contribution to that, in the end of the last episode, we talked about choice, right? And that's what you're alluding here to now is what are the choices you're going to make so that what you want on your tombstone is what you wanted on your tombstone. And I have three sayings for that. We've all heard the term man up. Okay. We've all heard the term pull up your big girl panties. Well, we were watching The Pit last night, and there was a very tense scene where people were questioning themselves and they had to make a choice. And it was not a good choice. It was a choice with a great deal of risk. But the outcome could be huge in a positive way. And the main character, played by Noah Weil, looks at another doctor because everyone is just like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. And Noah Weil says, doctor the fuck up. So here's the deal, folks. If you want a better life, man up, pull up your big girl panties, doctor the fuck up, make the choice, own the choice, and move forward. And with that, this has been another Health and Tech with Amanda Nystrom, National Health Board certified health and well-being coach. Thank you so much for joining us.